Hello, everyone. My name is Rich Shortall. I'm the Executive Officer for Fire Safe Marin. We're here today to do a workshop with the Southern Marin Fire Department. The purpose of workshops is for our local fire departments to talk about all the great work that they've been doing in the last year for our residents and communities. There's been a fantastic amount of work accomplished in Southern Marin, and we have with us today Madison Mead, who is the Vegetation Management Specialist for the Southern Marin Fire Department, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what territory she covers and some of the projects that they're working on. Madison, welcome.
Thanks, Rich. Before I start here, can everybody see my screen okay?
Looks great.
Beautiful. All right. So like Rich said, my name is Madison Mead. I am the Vegetation Management Specialist for Southern Marin Fire District. I oversee our multifaceted vegetation management program. Our area of responsibility is from the other half of the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco up to Mill Valley around the Corte Madera grade. That covers a lot of different neighborhoods, Sausalito, Strawberry, Alto, parts of unincorporated Tiburon, and the city of Mill Valley as well. We have a lot of different projects going on in a bunch of these places, and I'm excited to share them all with you. So today we're going to cover two main topics. It's going to be our forest health restoration projects and our defensible space projects. So the first topic we're going to cover here is our forest health restoration. And generally speaking, the way that we go about these projects, at Southern Marin, we use fuel modeling and studies such as the Community Wildfire Protection Plan in order to best evaluate our need for these restoration projects. The fuel modeling really helps us show the district's most vulnerable areas. And what we found over these studies is that our most vulnerable areas are pretty consistent across the board. We're finding that they're located at the boundaries of our district and open space areas adjacent. So our main priority with these goals and these projects, once we have identified areas of work, is to reduce the duration and intensity of flame length. We try to provide adequate spacing to break up contiguous fuels in open spaces. And the overall goal really is to lower ignitability and ignition spreading from surface to canopy. We work with many partner agencies in order to ensure that our stewardship and priorities are maintained and accomplished throughout our goals. Over time, the big goal here is to break up this contiguous fuel and invasive vegetation and to allow for native and more fire resilient vegetation over time to grow into its place. Sometimes with these projects, we do go through and we thin out areas, and there are other times with specific partner agencies and specific projects where we do remove invasive vegetation and then we do augment the area with more native species to try and help with that stewardship and with the overall goal of the project, which is to give our room for native and fire resilient plants to come in the landscape. So we have multiple projects going on in Southern Marin throughout many areas, namely Sausalito, Tiburon, Tam Valley, and Homestead Valley, and Mill Valley as well. The pictures we have here are actually from one of our projects in Tiburon on Ring Mountain. You can see beforehand we did have open space grasslands, really overgrown vegetation leading up to it from private properties. And once we were able to go through and treat this area, we did establish a nice healthy fuel break so that if there ever is any type of ignition in this area, it will really slow down before it reaches any private homes and private properties. So on that topic, this is a nice overall map of our Ring Mountain project. We're about 2/3 of the way to being completed, and the project started close to northbound 101. We've been making our way over towards the Tiburon Fire District boundary over off of Indian and Turtle Rock. So our next project here is going to be our Sausalito Forest Health Restoration Project. This is in its implementation phase, and this is a project we are going really very slowly and step by step on. We do recognize that there are very important cultural resources in the area, and we do recognize that there have been significant historic geographic events. We're really trying to keep both of those at the forefront in our scope of work and making sure that we avoid any areas that need to be preserved and that we're accounted or in any other areas of our work to ensure that we are not drastically altering any landscape or any historic preservation areas. Our next project here will be the Mill Valley Shaded Fuel Break. This has been ongoing, and we are hoping to complete this by December of 2023. As you can see, this project does hit a lot of different areas throughout Mill Valley. These are the most vulnerable areas that we recognized within our fuel modeling for these adjacent open space neighborhoods. The project scope varies from 100 to 150 feet from structures, depending on the slope and topography of the area. And the project in total does cover about 4 miles or 47 acres. Our Summit Ralston project here is also in Mill Valley, and this is in its implementation phase. We're currently working with the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and Panorama Environmental to study historic events and significant cultural resources in this area as well. We do recognize that it has a long history of geographic events, and we are trying to do everything that we can to best understand how to go about those areas. We do also recognize that this area in particular, it is a very tricky area, a very remote area. If there was a fire started, it would escalate rather quickly due to the density of the vegetation and the steep slopes. The challenging topography would also provide fire suppression challenges for us. So we really saw a need here to give ourselves a healthy boundary around these open spaces in order to best attack a fire should we ever need to respond. Our last project here is going to be our LRAD project. So you can see here on the site map, we do have installed sites as well as future sites that we would like to recognize and have installed. So throughout Southern Marin, the entire goal with the LRAD project is to adequately alert individuals if we need to evacuate or if there's an emergency. We recognize that there are many, many remote areas of Mill Valley, Sausalito, Tiburon, what have you, that do not get proper cell service. And something like a long-range acoustical device would allow for us to be able to get the message out should we need to evacuate. To date, we have installed 11 sites, and we are looking to install 3 more sites by the end of the year. With this project, we also did launch a Did You Hear It campaign in January 2022. These were periodic testing sites where we asked residents to give us their feedback on whether or not they heard the alert, whether or not they understood the alert, and whether or not that home actually fell into the specific boundary that we felt the LRAD would reach. This really helped us augment the program and have a better outlook for the future sites. The goal for this is to ensure that everyone in the district will be able to be adequately alerted should we ever need to have an evacuation. Our last topic here is going to be our defensible space projects. So we have multiple programs to help ongoing vegetation, defensible space, and evacuation efforts. The first program I'd really like to highlight here is our Southern Marin Fire Chipper program. This is a program that we run year-round, and it's an on-demand service for our residents. On average, we serve about 50 homes a month, and last year we did pull over 180 tons of vegetation throughout the district from residents. And we really see this as a crucial program because we see that a lot of our residents do have a financial burden of constant vegetation management on their properties. To be able to add this service for them has shown to be something that is really have a lot of value in the community. The next project I'd like to go over here is our evacuation route clearing. We work on this project year round, it's ongoing. And last year we actually we worked on over 130 streets and we cleared over 160 tons of vegetation from streets and encroaching access roads. So our main goal with this project is to allow for 2 things. We need to be able to access homes when we need to respond to calls, and our residents need to be able to get out and have adequate time to get out if they need to evacuate. So I chose Miller Lane here as a pretty good example. Pre-treatment, it was a very closed off road. The canopies were very low. There are signs here on the street, as you can sort of see, but you cannot read them. And access to the street is not exactly easy, comparatively speaking. So what we found was after treatment, we're able to lift the canopies up to the code of 15 feet. We're able to free up the space to see important signs. And if we need to respond to a call here, or if residents need to evacuate, we now have the proper spacing to do so. Another part of our defensible space program is our defensible space inspections. Since January 1st, 2023, we've performed over 1,100 defensible space inspections, and we have made more than 12,000 discoveries in those inspections. These discoveries varied heavily. They comprised of resilient elements of the homes, weaknesses we found in the homes, and overall code violations. Of these inspections, though, we had less than 10% of ongoing code violations were found. So just to recap some resources here, with our defensible space, should you like to schedule a home assessment, you can always go to smfd.org and request an inspection. This will allow you to pick the best time that's most convenient for your schedule, and we will have one of our inspectors come out and assess your home for you. If you are interested in our chipper program, you can head to our website, smfd.org, and you can check out the individual chipper request form. And lastly, if you're doing a lot of great defensible space and home hardening work, the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority does offer some really awesome grant programs. These are kickbacks to help residents who have tried to make their home more resilient. If you are more interested in that, you can always go to marinwildfire.org and get more information there. So that just about does it for me. If anyone has any questions or comments, I would love to field them now.
Well, Madison, thank you so much. That was a great presentation and a lot of really exciting work going on down there. Let's stop the slide presentation for a minute, and then we'll just get the two of us back on the screen here.
Sure. One moment. There we go.
Wonderful. All right, great. So just a couple of follow-up questions. I think it's great when you're doing all this health forest restoration work that you're removing the non-natives and encouraging the regrowth of the natives. Can you give an example or two of some of what you're pulling out and how that's helping things?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So in specific, one of our projects, well, many of our projects, but one project that we were collaborating with GGNRA and the National Park Service. Their biggest goal is stewardship. And our big thing here is to be able to support our partner agencies to accomplish all of the common goals. So in one particular area, we found there was a lot of very invasive Ichium or Pride of Madeira. That is a plant that loves to burn hot, puts off big flame lengths, and it grows very quickly, spreads very quickly. So what we did was we actually went through, we cleared out some of that area that was leading up to homes. It was very, very thick and dense, really had never been treated. It was leading up to about 20 homes. And what we did was we went ahead and we cleared that out. We put down some straw to stop with any erosion issues and weed coming up. Once that was nice and the dust settled, if you will, we went back through and we started planting some more actual natives. So what we've done over the span of time in multiple projects is, we've planted a lot of really resilient native plants, namely redwoods, coastal oak, things that'll help restore our chaparral and riparian environments naturally, things that we would see here, previous to really all of this invasive vegetation coming over and taking over. What we see a lot of the time that we do replace invasive vegetation, specifically broom, acacia, and the Ichium, we replace those with native vegetation as often as we can. We even sometimes, when it comes to residents who are adjacent to these projects and they still would like some privacy hedges, what have you, we've chosen things like pittosporum, that's really fire safe, olive trees, what have you, things that are not going to put off heavy flame lengths, that are low in oil and resin content and are rather low maintenance. They're easier to maintain over time that way.
That is, I think, really exciting. For those who sometimes worry about these programs, take a look at a 100-year-old photo of Marin County, and you're going to see grassland, native oaks, redwoods, the type of landscape that you're recreating. So much of what we see now is not natural. We often hear about broom being the invasive, but the Pride of Madeira is a real issue, and it's great that you're dealing with things like that. So nice work out there.
Thank you. It sure is. It's beautiful when it has its purple flowers, but once it starts to die out and dry out, it sure does become an issue. So, I definitely agree with you there. Our biggest thing that we like to try and educate residents on is that, our goal is not to moonscape the area. Our goal is really truthfully to bring it back to the way that it used to be. That'll give us the best fighting chance on a suppression side. That gives the environment its best chance to thrive in the way that it should. And, especially with Marin being so heavily filled with microclimates, I think it's extremely important to be wary of the way that invasive vegetation is heavily altering the landscape.
Yeah, that's great work. When we're looking at some of these fuel break projects, one of the big projects that's going on in Marin County is the Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break. How does some of your fuel break projects interface with that, if at all?
So we are a little bit further from Ross Valley in our jurisdictional lines. We're a little bit further out. However, we still follow the same methodology in terms of, all of our projects. If you kind of zoom out and you look at a 30,000-foot view of our district, eventually all of our fuel breaks are going to essentially connect to each other. It's going to create a really robust network of fuel breaks around the most vulnerable parts of our community. A lot of these areas are extremely remote. Access is not easy, and the slopes tend to be very, very steep in some of these areas. I know Ross Valley shares a lot of those same problems and goals that they're trying to accomplish. In terms of, the way that we're working, we all work pretty similarly, by way of trying to meet everyone in the middle for their goals. But one day we're hoping that our fuel break will be the big great Southern Marin fuel break, if you will.
Well,
we're
actually,
trying to catch up.
I think for Marin residents, they should really be happy that this level of cooperation is there. You're really going to go, we'll say, from the Golden Gate Bridge, really having great work being done all the way up throughout the county. Another big project coming up in Nevada, and it's all the same kind of work, and it all fits in together. It's all designed to make it safe. So it's nice to see all of that happening. You mentioned that we were throwing around LRAD a lot. At one point, you did mention that is the long range acoustical device. For a long time, Mill Valley has had, quote, sirens in to warn people for whatever the problem might be. What's the difference between those old sirens and the modern LRAD?
Yeah, no problem. I would love to answer that. So generally speaking, when you're talking about high-low sirens, any type of evacuation siren, the further you get from the sound source, the more this frequency and the actual sound level is going to diminish. You have your level of decibels, and the more trees you add, the more vegetation, the more homes you add, and distance is just going to diminish the quality and the overall sound that is coming out of the siren. The way that long-range acoustical devices are designed is that if you are standing at the pole or you are standing a mile away, you're going to get the same level of decibels. It's going to be able to sustain over time and over distance to be able to get that alert to people that are further. So the really important thing with our network that we're trying to build is to be able to meet all of those ranges and overlap each other so that we can ensure everyone is able to hear that message loud and clear. For example, we did do a siren testing in Tiburon. It was over by Edna McGuire School. It went off at about 85 decibels. And funny enough, actually, our chiefs heard it in their office over in Sausalito across the water, and they registered it at 79 decibels. So despite it going miles and over water and various terrain, we were still able to keep the integrity of the message. They still loud and clear through their windows heard, this is a test, evacuation test, what have you. And so we're really proud of being able to really try and use technology to leverage our goals. And I think something like the LRAD project is going to be really, really crucial if we ever need it.
Yeah, it's great. And now it has the voice capability, which is really great. So it's more than just a tone going off. So it's wonderful.
Exactly. And we can remotely control those as well. So we have, our protocol, generally speaking, is, we have one or two messages that we automatically would put out. We also do broadcast those in various languages, depending on the concentration of the neighborhoods that we're actually broadcasting to. We do try to ensure, that we have in English, also a Spanish message that comes out, and we're working on some other languages as well. But we just want to make sure that anyone who needs to hear the message can get out enough time.
That's super. Well, I have to say, I've always admired Mill Valley's commitment to evacuation. You are in challenging terrain over there, and there has been, as we all know, a history of wildfire impacting Mill Valley. And you've just done so many great things that the photos of what you did on Miller Avenue, really impressive. But you hold annual exercises, and can you just kind of summarize where you think Mill Valley stands on evacuation preparedness?
I would definitely say Mill Valley is an exemplary neighborhood. Overall, we have really, really strong participation, and we have people who are genuinely interested in trying to push that message forward. We have a really, really great concentration and participation in our CERT programs in Mill Valley, any of our evacuation drills. We definitely advertise for them, but it makes it much easier to get our messages across and to get these things done when our residents see the value in our programs. And that's really our saving grace here, is that they've always seen the value in preparedness. We have had so many fires that are very close. We've had so many fires in Mill Valley, and the proof is in the pudding there with the history. Most people, they kind of say, if you've been here long enough, you're going to understand how important it is. And I always personally appreciate that. So we're hoping that can continue, trekking along forward. And now that Mill Valley is officially part of Southern Marin Fire District, we're hoping that we can kind of get that contagious energy to the rest of our neighborhoods too.
Great. Well, keep up the good work. Very, very impressive. So the last thing is, you mentioned the defensible space or the home evaluation program. I believe that there's been one change, correct me if I'm wrong, where I think now you're using the fireside reporting format as part of the program.
We are. So we participated in the pilot program, and we did roll out a launch once that went live. So we're using a defensible space inspection app called Fireside. It's a software that was built for us, and it is specifically to help evaluate homes. It's a really, really revolutionary program, if you ask me. This is a program that gives a really, really comprehensive report and very educational approach for residents. It not only shows you exactly where the vulnerability or resiliencies in your home are, things pinpointed right on your property. We also attach pictures and any code or educational verbiage as well to really help better educate our residents. What we've really found from these reports is that it really helps start a healthy conversation about education, defensible space, evacuations, what have you. And it makes it really easy, again, when our residents see the value in our programs, to move along forward and continue with our educational approach. But I personally love the software. It is very, very user friendly. It allows residents a really good idea of kind of where they're at, where they're sitting in their home, and where they're at in the district, and what they can do to be better.
Yeah. So I encourage anybody who gets notice that the report has been completed. You have to go online to get the report. Definitely get it. You're not going to be disappointed. It's a tremendous thing. If you want to see what it looks like, Fire Safe Marin's YouTube channel walks you through all the steps of the report. It's a tremendous tool, and I think it's exciting that, once again, Southern Marin Fire is on board with that program. It's great. Real plus.
Yeah, we're happy to be part of the program.
Good. Well, Madison, I think that about wraps it up. Is there anything that you would like to add before we sign off?
No, not too much. I'm just, personally, I started out as a defensible space inspector, and I've worked my way up in the district, and I'm just still so happy to be here and be a part of these really, really innovative programs. Without Fire Safe Marin and Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, we really wouldn't have them. So, I appreciate everything you do as well. And, if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out, we are here always to answer questions and help out in any way we can.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to use this closing to really thank Marin residents who created the funding for the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, because most of this work, that is where the funding comes from. That's what makes it all possible. And that's really all of our residents stepping forward to evade this program possible. So thanks to everybody for all the good work. Madison, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for Southern Marin Fire Department for just doing a great job serving the residents of our community out there. All right.